For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. Good morning. Yes, as far as the Asia Pacific markets are concerned, all very, very slightly lower this morning. The Shanghai Composite down about 1.23%. I mean, we're going to be talking about China and the central bank there. They're not exactly sure how the consumers are facing at the moment, but they do feel as though there's the central bank, the People's Bank of China, is keeping monetary policy relatively loose, and it's helping that economy get back on its feet again, COVID-19. Again, these are very, very mixed reports coming out of China, but that seems to be round about the bottom line. Now, an interesting one as far as Japan's concerned, what they're finding is that whilst their factory output is about the slowest pace for about 6 months, remember that they do have a new central bank governor, and there's a very important meeting, which I hope to bring you details of on Friday, the 28th of April, i.e. a week today. Many people in the market are thinking that maybe Ueda, who's the new guy, maybe Kazuro Ueda, who is the new central bank governor, may well be tightening policy very, very slightly. Now, will this mean that therefore expatriated funds will flow back into Japan? That really is going to be a big set state for the government there. As far as the United States is concerned, stock futures relatively flat this morning. The Dow had a down day yesterday. The Nasdaq too. A lot of funds have been actually flowing out of the market to safer places. About 68 billion, as you can tell at the moment. That's the biggest outflow since 2020. So whilst equities are very, very mixed in New York, there's still a general feeling that maybe some of this money is flowing out to perhaps to safer refuges, which still give a yield. The jobless claims yesterday, and another 5,000 added to the total, slightly worse than expected. Is the labour market softening in the United States? Very possibly, yes. It was an Elon Musk day today, wasn't it? I mean, you covered live the SpaceX takeoff and so on. So what we had were three big things for him. First of all, Tesla, the shares shrank considerably yesterday. SpaceX eventually exploded in outer space, and then he also threatened to sue Microsoft over taking, he allegedly that Microsoft took data from Twitter. As far as SpaceX is concerned, again, it looks very much more dramatic than it actually is. Experts tell me this morning that basically those kind of disasters, fortunately no humans involved, no crew involved in that, are par for the course as far as spacecraft testing is concerned. Now, big news from the EU lawmakers at the European Parliament. They have actually drawn up the first framework for regulations as far as the cryptocurrencies are concerned. It's called the Markets in Crypto Act, the MCA. You'll be hearing a great deal about this. The detail we don't know yet, but it's going to address the general kind of things of transparency, disclosure, and also authorization. The UK will be adopting it, it says, in 12 months' time. This will come to pass probably in a few months' time as far as the EU is concerned. Now, I'm going to take you to Ireland, which is in the EU, and the chief executive of TikTok, who was savaged, as you know, by US lawmakers, is saying that as far as Ireland's concerned, tens of thousands of people, he says, are looking at TikTok content and attempting to moderate it. So this is a very important step as far as TikTok is concerned. Remember that there's a vast majority of the lawmakers in the United States who want to ban TikTok because of its ownership by ByteDance, by Chinese company ByteDance. And this is TikTok's way, it looks like, of trying to allay people's fears about it. We'll see what the results of that is. Retail sales just out in the UK, and they're a bit soggy. Soggy, I use the word advisedly because whilst there was a lot of rainfall, that tended to stop people going out and shopping. But if you look at consumer confidence, according to the widely respected GfK survey, which is a private survey, but very well respected. It's actually quite high. Wages are growing. Energy supply support from the government is helping people. This isn't to say people are not worried about inflation. Yes, of course they are. Yes, they're worried about the cost of living. But generally speaking, there's a certain sort of optimism as far as the consumer's concerned. Oil, finally, doubts about China, the normal kind of stuff, making the market very, very volatile indeed. Also doubts about global growth. Gold, though, well, it's pressing at that kind of, maybe it's the market sort of thinking it might get to that sort of 2050 level as more worries arise about the banking system and all the rest of it. It may be seen. Maybe it's time in the sun is about to happen, but we've been saying that for a few days. So far, relatively steady, but still maybe some way to go into a record.
All right, good one, Michael, and good to see you again, and happy belated birthday here. Real quickly, I'd like to talk about growth prospects and those shopping numbers. Yeah, you say it's soggy, that's why they're dwindling. But across board, all the measures put in to tame inflation, except for over the pond in America, has pretty much not worked in the UK. Cost of living biting hard. I was in England recently and I saw for myself a first-hand experience of close to 100% increase in prices of things in the market. Close to 100% increase. How is it panning out?
Sorry, 100% increase in what?
In price year on year of things, of normal petty things in the market, you know, things you could get for XYZ, train ticket prices and the likes. It was a mammoth increase when you benchmark with year on year about last year. So all the things, the rising of interest rates to be able to tame inflation, it's obviously not worked and people are just creeping by.
Well, I mean, all I can do is I don't recognise the 100% increase in prices, but maybe you've seen something that I haven't. The average rate of inflation, as you know, is 10.1%. That's no good. And we were saying yesterday this inflation will come down by the end of the year, and it'll be nothing to do with politicians having anything to do with it about it at all. It's just the natural flow of things because prices, the rate of price rises will actually go down because remember, that's what inflation is. It's the measure of the rate of price increases, not the cost of living. Yeah, the cost of living is high. People are very worried, but I was quoting you figures this morning, and again from a very reliable source, which is the GfK Private Consumer Survey, which we get every month, and it's saying that consumer confidence is relatively high. Now, those shopping figures, yeah, give you that down in March because it was a fairly rainy month, as was the beginning of April too. But generally speaking, the consumer appears to be quite good. Now, this isn't to say there aren't problems. Yes, of course there are. What will happen when the government support for energy prices runs out, as it will in June? That's all to play for. So on the one hand of things, you're absolutely right. On the other, I still feel as though maybe just saying that things are terrible doesn't paint the complete picture. I think there are little shoots of optimism, as there are in all economies really, around the world, which I hope I've been reflecting this morning.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's always good to hear your optimism with regards to the UK economy. But let me talk about Elon Musk and Twitter. So yesterday, Twitter stripped a number of people of their blue verification badge, especially if you haven't paid the $84 to get your blue tick. And a number of celebrities, personalities had something to say about this. Do you think that Elon Musk and Twitter would be looking at perhaps reducing that cost or reviewing that policy? He's gone ahead to do it, but it's been mixed reactions so far.
I think he has. I think he's into this very... Look, I've been saying this all along about Twitter. If you want to do it, that's absolutely fine. What started off as one's thought about this long before Musk came into the picture, the idea of Twitter was that it would be a sort of marketplace for opinion. Turns out it's a playground for hate and saying bad things about people, and I happen to think it's something to be avoided. And as I say, it may well be that the regulators need to move in there. How will he turn Twitter into a business? I could be sticking my neck out here. I feel as though it's sort of had its day. I think that people will move from it to other kind of social media things, but I could be completely wrong. What will he be doing? I would imagine he's probably thinking, where am I going to go with this? Did I pay too much money for it? I've been sacking the staff. I'm trimming the operation down. What we haven't seen from Twitter, and I keep saying this, is a business model that people can actually understand. That's really what we want to see out of Twitter. And I think the day-by-day blue tick debate and all the rest of it is absolutely fine. But the bottom line is, so, Mr. Musk, what is your business model for Twitter? What is it going to be? And how am I and my children and my grandchildren going to be protected from some of the stuff that's on there that should not be there?
Well, yesterday, by the way, was Elon Musk's day, as has been pointed out, from SpaceX to Tesla to the fight with Microsoft over Twitter information. But quickly, I wanted to ask you, what's happening at the Confederation of British Industry? It's supposed to be a business lobby group, but it's all about sex allegations. Shouldn't they just fold up that CBI since it looks like they've been damaged? And quickly, Janet Yellen, U.S. Treasury of the Secretary, says it will be dangerous to decouple with China and that the U.S. has no intentions of doing so. It's just that mere political talk. Should we trust that declaration?
Well, let's do Janet Yellen first. Yes, I think that what she says is eminently sensible. There is no point in decoupling because there's nothing. I mean, the United States, China, Apple. If you read what we were talking about yesterday, Apple may be going into India, but Apple's a big industry. It will still need China. So there are all sorts of links which are actually still there. There's no decoupling to take place. I think that if what she's trying to do is to do the George Orwell rather than the war, then I think she's absolutely right to do that. And trade, I still think, is a tremendously powerful lever from both sides. I mean, it's, China needs the United States, China needs the EU, and vice versa. In all those ways, everything is still interconnected. Until those interconnections actually break, then I see no reason. As far as the CBI is concerned, look, I don't want to get involved in whatever is being flushed out there. The police are going in there. The Director General, who actually got the sack, is saying that a lot of this was happening before he was there. He doesn't recognise some of the things he's supposed to have done. So there's a whole investigation going about that. I mean, if the more general thing is, does business need a voice? I think it probably does, but whether it's the CBI or not, I'm not exactly sure, because they have taken some very, very strange and full positions about particular big things, particularly about Brexit, for example. I mean, they were great Remainers as far as Brexit was concerned, and I don't think organisations like that should be taking a position. What they're supposed to be, as I understand it, is a conduit for business comment to go into government. Now, this is very interesting. What I see is that, as you know, Sunak, the Prime Minister, has hired an ex-JP Morgan French-born expert to be the business voice. He's been saying to people in cabinet, think the way business people would think when you make decisions. And also Rachel Reeves, who, and I think this is important too, who is the Shadow Chancellor, has been engaged in talking to bigwigs in the city and in business too, and they are queuing up to meet her because the Tories have been looking at her over some of the lunches they've been to and saying, do you know what? Actually, she talks a lot of sense. Now, that takes quite something, doesn't it, to come across from the political divide and look at somebody like Rachel Reeves and say, she probably would make quite a good chancellor. So that's what's going at the moment. Where the CBI fits into all this and how it will recreate itself, I simply don't know.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Now, for business updates across the African continent, Rochus Odiri is here. Good morning, Rochus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Welcome back, man. Good morning, Ayo. Good to see you. Miss you too, man. And good morning to all our viewers. We're only talking about chicken today, Doctor. Chicken. One of my favorite things to eat. If you're into weightlifting, you need chicken breast to add weight and muscle. Oh, yes, indeed. Yes. No, chicken breast. It has a lot of protein. Doctor, where are you going with that? All right, quickly. I know all the time. Yeah. Aha, there you go. So very quickly, the Poultry Association of Nigeria. There's an article in today's business. They encourage today's is This Day newspaper, Nigeria's newspaper of record. I encourage everybody to read it, where they are talking about the fact that if they do not get any intervention from government, they will collapse. These two headwinds don't tell the full story. So Mr. Gideon Oluleye, who is the Southwest Chair of the Poultry Association of Nigeria, talking about how rising interest rates are increasing costs for them, and insecurity is also an issue. There are further quotes that we can go through from other members of the poultry sector. This is from a gentleman, Mr. Bolaji Adeni. He was speaking to a Business Day just last month. He was the manager of Aditofe. He says, we have been experiencing different shocks since 2020 after the pandemic outbreak, and when we try to stand from one shock, then a new one comes and knocks us down. But another, I think the Director General of the Poultry Association of Nigeria, he also speaking to Business Day as well. From exchange rate volatility to the high cost of feeds to supply chain disruption to smuggling and the current low consumer demand induced by accelerating inflation and naira scarcity, it has been a chain of problems for the poultry industry since 2020. So they said there's some, if you look at the industry losses, this is from the pandemic. According to the Poultry Association of Nigeria, they said they lost 1.5 trillion from the pandemic impact. Then for naira scarcity, they said they lost about 30 billion so far this year because of the impact of the naira scarcity, which they said they didn't disagree with, but they just disagreed with the timing. Here's the intervention request for government. They are basically asking for subsidies to mop up 15 to 20 million unsold crates of eggs. The Lagos State government had to intervene, I think, what was it now? Was it last year or the year before, to do that in Lagos? Resuscitate school feeding programs so you can feed the children eggs. They're also saying to feed people in IDP camps eggs as well. Subsidize inputs, there you go, subsidy, like maize and soya. Doctor, remember our animal feed discussion the other day? And then this is the last one. It says delay loan payments or cancel loans outright. You'll remember, I've brought up industry after industry after industry after industry. Paper, manufacturing, agriculture. Once again, just to remind our viewers, at the end of the tenure of an administration, if you still have people in different sectors calling for this kind of assistance, what improvements were made at all? I don't know if we have an illustration. There's an illustration in, I can't remember which paper it was, where there's a drawing of President Buhari with the famous toothpick in his mouth, where he says, I've tried my best. And he's sitting in front of a bus, and the bus has the label Nigeria on it. The tires are down, the windows are broken, the engine, you saw it, yeah? The engine is basically just looking at the economy after him, basically, with a broken down bus. It's just, if you take assessment of the economy, it's just been one terrible disaster after another.
Rotus, and I've got a scoop for you. While I was away, I think the president of the Bread Makers Association contacted me. Maybe I'll give you that scoop. Okay. And she talked about the fact that bread prices too will go up. Things are bad. Concerning the chicken, I'm not surprised. So the question you should ask is, all those targeted palliative during COVID-19, so what sectors did they go to? Right. Is it part of the Indomie people couldn't get that is causing all of this? Because you see, we squandered the money we ought to use for the sectors. And that's why we have the problems we have. And that's why, please, I'd like to beg. I know we need to go just one. I'd like to beg. That $800 million, let us not squander it like we want to. Let's not squander like we want to do on 10 million families now. Right. Because we don't have accountability on that money. Well, that's what we always do.
Thank you so much.
So sorry. I'm sorry.
It's fine. Thank you. It's good to have you.